Oh Lord, pull up in that '04, pedal to the metal, says she wanna hit the flow more.
You know what? Back in the 1990s, it used to be, what would Jesus do? I want to know what Ken Herock would do. That's Ken Herock right here. How's it going, Ken?
Good to see you, Terrence.
Yeah, and I want to tell you
here.
something. Yeah, and I'm going to talk to this guy right here about what would the Atlanta Falcons do, and what should they do? What would he do? That number 4 pick in the NFL draft next week. Jesus might care about that because he cares about all things, but yeah, maybe not. I know this guy does for sure. But before I get to Ken, all right, this video is sponsored today by the Rise Up Tour Draft Party. So if you're in Cleveland next week, April 29th, be there, and you can find out more information right underneath this video here because it's going to be a great, great party. Now, getting to Mr. Herock. This man right here is one of the greatest player personnel directors in the history of the National Football League. And I dare say this, you, Ken, are the most underrated of the greatest player personnel guys of all time. That's my story.
Well, I appreciate that, Terrence. I think I made a lot of good picks, just unfortunately wasn't able to get to the Super Bowl. That's the measuring stick right there. Wasn't able to do it. As I look back, I think I drafted some of the greatest quarterbacks ever played in this league. Brett Favre, Steve Young, and also drafted the first black quarterback in the first round, Doug Williams. Went on to win a Super Bowl in Washington. So for my expertise as a quarterback evaluator, I've always felt pretty good about that.
I'll tell you something, Ken. It goes a little bit further than that. You've been a little modest here. This man you're looking at right here, this man drafted two, not one, two future Pro Football Hall of Famers within 3 years. Unbelievable. I mean, the first one was 1989. Tell me about that little guy that you drafted back then.
I drafted a guy named Deion Sanders. You may remember him. I drafted a guy named Steve Young. You may remember him.
And actually
Clark,
3.
You may remember him.
I'm cutting it short. I thought it was 2, but it's 3.
3, yes.
That's unbelievable. And then, of course, Brett Favre in 1991. It's just incredible. You know, and what is it that you think? What would you say is your greatest attribute to be able to tell not only just talent, but great talent and superstar talent and Hall of Fame talent?
Well, you have to be around the game for so long. And I was around, starting with Mr. Davis, Al Davis. I played for him. He taught me everything I knew. I learned a lot, so much. And you can see the Raiders have a lot of Hall of Fame players. And that was always the key. Hall of Fame, Pro Bowl players. You get them, you're going to win, obviously. And so I always tried to make sure, he says, Ken, get yourself a quarterback. Always shot for that quarterback. I always made sure I got a Hall of Fame quarterback. Some worked out. I don't think I drafted a quarterback, didn't work out, basically. And then after that, start drafting the players. He says, you got to stop the pass. We play man-to-man coverage. Get a guy that can cover, Deion Sanders. Get a tackle. I had a great tackle in Mike Ken. Then I got Bob Whitfield, Lincoln Kennedy. And they drafted a lot of other guards and centers, but those guys are the guys that I got that from Mr. Davis. And then he had to build on defense. Get a pass rusher. I never had a chance to I didn't get one until I got Chuck Smith. Then I traded for Chris Dolman. And then, those are the kind of pass rushers you win with in this league.
Let me do a little building here. And because you threw out a lot of great names there. I just want to tell you guys in chronological order what's going on here. All right. This man right here was a tremendous tight end. Well, I'm going way back to West Virginia. You're in the West Virginia Hall of Fame, right?
That's right. Didn't make it in the NFL. I don't think I ever will, but I'm proud of my West Virginia roots.
Yeah. So you spent all that time with the Raiders. And of course, you and I have Raider connections. I covered the Oakland Raiders, the real Oakland Raiders. I don't know who these clowns are now. Man. Back in 1980, I was covering the Raiders with Al Davis. You mentioned Al Davis, the great Al Davis, the owner, the general manager, the everything with the Raiders. And the other thing that you left out here, which is very, very important, you became a very good colleague and good friends with a guy named Ron Wolf. Ron Wolf, who's a builder of all these great franchises. Ron Wolf, who's in the Hall of Fame, and you should be in the Hall of Fame. But anyway, the relationship between you and Ron Wolf has been going on.
That relationship, Terrence, started in 1963. under Mr. Davis. Ron was just an up and coming scout, then became a director. After I was done playing, they brought me into the organization. There was only me and Ron Wolf working for Al Davis at that time. 2 scouts. Ron had everything west of the Mississippi, had everything east of the Mississippi. So that's the way it started. And that's how I learned. In those days, you weren't a pro scout, you weren't a college scout, you were a scout and evaluator. You did both. Me and Ron had to know every pro player, every college player, and you couldn't have a note in your room. You had to know it up here. If you didn't have it up here, Mr. Davis doubted you. You had to know it in your head. I can give you an example. I was coaching under John Madden, and it was my first preseason game. And I'm coaching the tight ends and special teams. Now, in those days, we had maybe 3 deep on special teams. And I had my list of who was on first, second, third team, substitution. We had 100 guys on the field. After the game, I'm so happy I didn't make a mistake. I go into the locker room and I hear, "Hey, you." As soon as you hear, "Hey, you," you're in trouble. Uh-oh, what did I do? "Hey, you, come here. I don't ever want to see that sheet in your hand. Put it up here." That's the way he was. So everything I knew had to be, you had to know it. You couldn't take a cheat sheet, a sheet here, a sheet there. You knew it. You knew every height, weight, speed, and you knew it when you were called on to say it. So, you had a lot of discipline that I learned through Mr. Davis. I learned through Ron Wolf. Ron Wolf supposedly had a photographic mind. All I know is I tried to match that mind. But if he could do all the heights, weights, and speeds, I could do the same thing. So that's the way we worked in those days.
And we're going to get to that, what you would do with that 4th pick for the Falcons in a minute. But I just got to say this, and I want to talk about this thing you've been doing for 20 years, this pro prep thing, which is incredible, getting guys ready for the NFL. But let's continue in chronological order. So you're with the Raiders, you build that franchise, those championship teams in 1976, they go on and win the Super Bowl. 1980, when I'm covering them, they go on and win the Super Bowl. 1983, when I'm still covering them, they're down in LA, they win the Super Bowl. Some, if not many of those players, you helped build that franchise. And then Tampa Bay, you're talking about Doug Williams in those years. And then you came to the Atlanta Falcons. This franchise had been nothing for decades. And then you get Dion, and then you get Brett Favre. It wasn't your fault, by the way, that they traded him. They had a guy named Jerry Glanville who, we can talk about that too. But anyway, I mean, you've just been this franchise builder all the way through. Let me ask you this. What was your proudest moment during those years as being in charge of those franchises, as far as player personnel departments in Tampa Bay and Atlanta, and just what you did with the Raiders?
The Raiders, obviously, we had success. Myself as a player, played in the Super Bowl. Raiders, all the Super Bowls they won, but I wasn't there when they were winning them. I was building other franchises. But Tampa Bay, in 4 years, we were in the NFC Championship game. Played the Los Angeles Rams, lost to them, who won the Super Bowl.
And that's
in
fastest,
4 years.
Was that the fastest or the next?
That's the fastest ever of a new franchise team going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And we did it that fast. Proudest moment I had here with the Falcons was just getting into the playoffs, because they hadn't been in the playoffs for a long time. Just getting them back to the playoffs, getting them respectability. We start bringing in teams that had charisma. Deion Sanders had charisma. That was the kind of guy you were building your team around. And he just made it exciting. Andre Rison. I go on and on with the guys we had, and they were guys that were noted for, as I said, charisma. When they go out there, they were winners. And I was always proud of those guys, even though we never got to the Super Bowl. We won some playoff games, but never made it to the Super Bowl. I'm proud of the players that I had. And I always still look back, I always think, God, we should have been better.
Yeah. Well, you were very good. And I'll tell you what, we're going to get to that 4th pick. What would Ken Herock do with that 4th pick? But before we do that, let's get to this pro prep organization you've had for 20 years. Tell us about that, because that's just phenomenal and this is your own little baby here, and it's been highly successful.
Yes, Terrence. I retired early. I retired when I was 59. I didn't want to go on into the National Football League when I was 70 years old. I could have hung around, been around, stayed around. I wanted to go out. I wanted to retire. I had 24 hours every day, 7 days a week, So I wanted to retire, enjoy myself. I retired, and in about a month, I was going, what the heck am I going to do? And I don't want to go back and do the 24/7, but I wanted something to do in the NFL. So I come up with this idea. I called on agents that I knew and said, this is what I could do for you. I started the first combine in 1981 in Tampa Bay for National Football Scouting. We ran it there. So I knew the kids that would come in that room, how unprepared they were to meet with the GM, a coach or whatever. So I got a program together, presented it to about 15, 20 agents, the same agents I'm still dealing with right now, because they know the service is so good that I prepare their guys the right way. When I prepare a kid, when he walks into that room, he lights it up. That's all I can tell you. He lights it up. They love him when he leaves that room. And I know when I first started this, some of the GMs and coaches, they were a little upset. Hey, you're preparing these kids. We can't really see the real kid. I said, hey, listen, my job's to make them money. And they're going to go in that room and make some money for themselves. So like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I averaged around 70 players a year, top players in the draft, probably every year about 13 first-round picks. So,
and I'll tell you, that's a good segue into that number 4 pick right here. Before we get to what you would do if you were the Falcons GM, let's just talk about some of these guys here. I mean, you got Kyle Pitts. Yeah, you talk about not Kyle Pitts. That's his name. The tight end from Florida.
You got it. You said it right.
Yeah, I mean, this guy. I know you play tight end. I mean, this guy is tremendous, obviously. But how tremendous is he?
Okay, I look at him being. When we talk about him, they had Tony Gonzalez. He was far and better than Tony Gonzalez coming up. I see him. I look at him. I look at Antonio Gates. I see Darren Waller dominating. I see Kelsey. He's ahead of him athletically as far as Gronkowski's, Kelsey's, Littles. I go back to tight ends, great tight ends. Mike Ditka, Dave Casper, I coach. I mean, they're all Hall of Fame players. This guy is a generational player. He's an instant Pro Bowl player to me, easy. And he's going to be a Hall of Famer. The guys I mentioned were Hall of Famers. He's as good as I've seen. And I know the tight end since the day I played. I mean, I go back to Russ Francis. I go back to Ozzie Newsome, Charlie Sanders. I go on and on. This guy has it all. If any player in this draft is a success, without any question in my mind, it's him. I would take him. Now with Hayden Hurst, I get another year out of Julio Jones, maybe 2. I get Ridley. How are you going to stop me? And as I said, they got a couple more years left in that quarterback. That quarterback isn't just going to bring another quarterback in and set him aside. No, he's pretty good. Don't cast him aside. Get him something to play with. Don't worry about the future. You'll get the future next year. Get today's player for tomorrow. That's all I could say. You want to win. Don't tell me you're building. I want to win. I'll win with Kyle Pitts. You can't match up with him. I've seen enough.
I can tell you hung around Mr. Davis an awful lot. Just win, baby. But
just win.
Before we get to the quarterbacks, I know that's your wheelhouse right there with the quarterback. Let's go to a guy like Sewell. Okay, this guy is supposed to be the premier offensive lineman in the history of the world, if you believe all the people out there. How good is Sewell from Oregon, I believe? Do you think he is
He's
the
good.
real
He's
deal?
a good player, but there's a lot of Sewells every year. Those left tackles, there's a couple every year that come along. He's not going to change their game. They've got good enough offensive linemen to get by. He's not going to change the game like the tight end can change the game for him. You line up him and Hurst, those 2 wide receivers. And then in the second round, let's draft the back. And that's the way I see it. That's going to be a tough offensive stop. And that would give the weapons for that quarterback to be successful next year, put up some points.
Well, let's get to the quarterbacks here. Okay, my guy, this is what I've been saying on this video. And again, you're the expert. I'm just a lowly sports writer. I've been saying Justin Fields would be a perfect pick for the Falcons. I mean, and you look at all the quarterbacks there. Where do you rank Justin Fields? As a matter of fact, we know that Trevor Lawrence is already off the picture here. Where would you rank in order the other, say, 3 top quarterbacks everybody's talking about?
Well, I see Mac Wilson as a guy that's so accurate, so precise, that he's going to fit in right away. Justin's going to be a project for a while. He came into Georgia, didn't quite do it. Now, I got to say this now. He did have a good year this year, 70-some% thrower. limited interceptions. I like that part. I'm just not as sold on him. I've seen, maybe it's because I've seen some bad games. I've seen some good games.
Western Indiana.
Right. And right, exactly. And I have a little concern there, being the fourth pick for me. He's going to sit. He's going to have to sit for a year or two. He's going to overtake that guy right away. It's not going to happen right away. And in the meantime, you're going to lose. I don't want to lose.
And you mentioned,
so maybe next year there'll be some more quarterbacks in it.
And a guy like, I guess, Mac Jones from Alabama. Now everybody's talking about how accurate he is, and I guess
how accurate he is. He's only had like one good year. I mean, his senior year. I look at it. I look at this as the Alabama quarterbacks. Name me a successful Alabama quarterback other than Bart Starr, Joe Namath, and Ken Stabler.
Great point.
Richard Todd? No, I mean, he wasn't that good. I'd say all these other quarterbacks haven't done anything there. McCarron, what's he done? Jalen Hurts, you got to move on. I go on and on. Tua, he hasn't done anything. Remember, that team is a pro team. They put out more receivers than any team, anybody in the National Football League would love to have those receivers. That offensive line's always a pro offensive line. I can put a lot of quarterbacks behind that line and be successful. So I look at it from that standpoint, and that's what I'm concerned about. I have a concern there that he's a product of Alabama.
And what about the guy that's been rising up? Is Lance? He comes out of nowhere. Everybody's talking about him. Are you a big on him or not?
I have reservations. I look at it this way. I was in August. I'm in Atlanta, and I'm working with a quarterback out of Wake Forest that went to Georgia. I'm working with him, preparing him for the interviews, to meet people and so forth. And so he's there. I don't get to meet him.
Is that Jamie Newman?
Yeah, Jamie Newman. Yes, you've got Jamie Newman. And so I hear about Lance. So I call my son. I said, hey, Lance is working. My son works with the Browns. He was with the Raiders, Green Bay. So I said, hey, listen, what about this Lance kid? He said, Dad, I haven't seen him. He's supposed to be rated high. I said, let's turn on a film. We turn on one game this year that he played in. And it's a team, I don't even remember the damn team's name, but it's no Ohio State, it's no Penn State, it's no Florida, it's no Alabama or Clemson. I don't even know the name of them. And he looks average. And he threw for 50%. And I'm going, this is the guy they're talking about? Third, fourth, fifth quarterback? I said, not me. I like my job. You see? So I don't see that right away. Now I know he has tremendous ability. They talk about his athletic skills, his arm throws. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But let's see him do it. Okay, let's see him do it. And I look at him as, if you take him, you better keep your fingers crossed.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's get right down to it, because everybody else watching this thing said, so who's going to pick? Who's he going to pick? So Ken Herock, you're back with the Atlanta Falcons. You're the GM of the Atlanta Falcons. There's all this pressure on the organization. They've had 3 consecutive losing seasons. Everybody's saying the clock is ticking on Julio and Matt Ryan and all this stuff, and the fans are getting itchy for something to happen, whatever. Who on April 29th at 8 o'clock, or sometime after 8 o'clock, who is going to be your pick with that 4th pick in the entire NFL draft?
My pick is Kyle Pitts. I will add him to the guys that they have on that offense, and we'll be good. We'll be good. I ain't worried about the following year. I'll get it, man. I'll work to get a quarterback if I have to the following year. But I'm not taking a chance on an iffy quarterback right now, unless I can get 2 quarterbacks, Lawrence or Wilson. The rest I'm a little iffy on right now, and I would be reluctant to want to dig into those guys. Now you got to remember, I don't do as much extensive work into these players, but I do know you can do all the work you want. But I watch him play on TV. I watch film, and I don't come away. Now that quarterback, that's Brett Favre. Ooh, that's Steve Young. I don't see that. I see that in the other 2. I see Steve Young was a unique player. He didn't have a great arm, but he could run 4.4, 4.5. He was a different type of player. And the Red Fire had the strongest arm you can ever believe in the league, you see. But I knew those guys can play. They had the heart. They know how to play. I'm not so sure about these other guys. I haven't seen enough of them. When I say seen, I mean I haven't gone into the school. I haven't talked to them. I haven't met them. And maybe that makes a difference. But I always look back. There was a quarterback out of Tennessee one year. Went to the Washington Redskins in the first round. God dang, here I am. I'm so good on names, and I forget this guy's name right now.
Sure.
Anyway,
Yeah.
he wasn't very good on tape. He held the ball a little. I didn't like him at all. I go to the workout. He is prepared by a guy that coached in this league forever, and he coached him to the point where when you watch that workout, you came away and said, "Wow, what was I looking at? This guy's really good." No, I went back and said, I looked at the film. I don't care what they did in the workout. I saw the film. And that's the way I feel about some of these kids. I haven't seen the workout. I keep hearing about how good they were. And that doesn't impress me as much as from what I saw on the film. And that's what I'll go by there whenever I'm doing my quarterbacks. See, one thing when I look at a quarterback, you've got to be tough. I don't know about some of these guys tough. I haven't investigated as much. I do know this. Brett Favre was probably one of the toughest players that ever played. Same with Steve Young. Doug Williams, you'd have to shoot him to get him off the field, you see. That's how tough those guys were. And I always believe that was something they had inside that made them better players. I go back to the players I played with. I go back to Kenny Stabler. I know how tough he was, you see. I knew that quarterback. I knew how tough he was. I knew he could win, you see. And that's what I always put a lot of emphasis in that competitiveness, that toughness that quarterback had, along with the abilities, obviously.
You know, Ken, you talk about toughness and what have you. You played in the first Super Bowl, no doubt, right? With the Ravens?
Super Bowl II.
Super Bowl II, the second one. So you know my guy right here, Vince Lombardi. Did you ever meet him? You talk about tough.
Oh, geez. I never got the opportunity to shake his hand or meet him. Heard so much about him. In fact, I was in Green Bay for 2 years with Ron.
I remember.
I know the history. I love the guy. You had to love him for everything he did and the teams that he built. They didn't have general managers per se in those days. They had a guy said he was a GM or in charge of it, but he was the guy in charge of everything. Just like Al Davis was in charge of everything. I mean, I never drafted a player at the Raiders. I never drafted a player. It all came down to the boss. I can remember my first draft, going to my first draft with him, 1970. I'm on the East, out of the East. And there was a guy at Ohio State named Jack Tatum. Jack Tatum. We never met Jack Tatum. We never brought him in for an interview. We never timed him. We never give him any tests. We never watched him work out. All I knew is I graded him as a high first round pick. I said that he was the fastest guy on their squad at Ohio State. That's the only time we had. That's scouting. And that's what they're going to have to do this year because the scouts weren't out in those fields like they normally are. And these pro days, you're limited, not like you have the combine like you normally do. So the guys that can scout are going to win this draft this year.
Well, you know, Ken, we're going to end with this. You said that if you were the Falcons GM, you would go with Kyle Pitts. Who would you say out of all the players in the draft, who is the best player, hands down, out of everybody in this draft?
Kyle Pitts.
Whoa. So you're saying that if the Falcons get him, they will get the best player in the entire
They
draft.
will get the best player in the draft. I mean, let's push aside the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, because I always thought he was great. He's been great ever since I was, and he produced. Other than Trevor Lawrence, I got to go to Kyle Pitts, period.
You know what, folks? We don't know what Jesus would do, but we just don't know what Ken Herock would do, and that's a lot right there. Thanks a lot for joining us, and keep doing what you're doing because it is great.
Okay, good to see you again, Terrence, and I hope I helped you out a little bit there, buddy.
This is my falsetto, wicked potion with the slow pour. This is my addiction, make me wanna go for more. Pale